Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nick Files. I'm your host, Nick Muley. Today we got quite another interesting episode here for you. We're going to be once again focusing our attention to what we originally had for this upcoming week because we were going to continue on. Believe it or not, the original plan was we were actually going to be focusing on some other locations that I actually recently had found out about. After the Ohio State reformatory presentation, there were actually several other locations throughout the town of Mansfield I was going to present. However, after my most recent investigation and trip that I went to, which was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I decided to, and basically, normally when I put these presentations together, usually they act as a precursor for these upcoming investigations. But this is going to be one of the rare few times where I'm going to be doing it after when we went, which I usually would rather wait before we go a second time, which I'm actually going to be heading to the Bell Man. I'm actually going to be heading back to the Bell Mansion in August, which I'm really looking forward to being a part of once again. But either way, I decided to, I guess, kind of like in a way of advertising, much like I did with OSR for ParasiteCon, that I thought it would be appropriate to, in this case for today, present you guys a presentation for both the Bell Mansion and also another location out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, known as the Fort Wayne Masonic Temple. Now, these two slideshows in particular, they're not really that long of slideshows, which is among one of the reasons why I wanted to add two of them for this one. And the Bell Mansion one, surprisingly, is actually shorter of the two, which I was really surprised by such a location of such notoriety, and especially when it comes to its history, that it wasn't really that long as I was originally hoping I was gonna find. But while I was at the Bell Mansion, being on a history tour of this place, I was able to at least gather some additional historical information that is not really available online. So the person that actually provided me that history was, believe it or not, Ricky Hellard, who's one of the volunteers who's one of the volunteers at the Bell Mansion. He was able to provide me some additional information. So I definitely want to give a huge thanks for him to give me some additions to the slideshow. But just before we do get started, though, let me just say some quick hellos out there. Hey, Eric, what's going on? What's up, Nigel? Good to see you. Hey, Kelly, good to see you as well. Welcome. So with these two slideshows being relatively short, like I said, I really don't know how far we're really going to go because, like I said, they're really short. The way how I already kind of see it, there's definitely we're definitely not going to be able to make it through the entire full hour and a half. I mean, I could see most likely probably a good hour out of this, but I don't think we're going to go through the entire time. But we'll see how time goes along and see how far we can go with them. What's up, Lucy? Good to see it. Good to see you here. So, all right, hang on one second here because I don't know why. It's been a long day already, and I always keep forgetting to get the phone out just so I can have hopefully just so I can have the screen ready, and well, just so I can make sure the screen is projecting correctly when I get the slideshow ready. So, all right, now let's go through this as usual. All right, where do we go from here? Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Here's what I was looking for. All right, so the first location I have here, like I said, which I think is very appropriate to start with, is undoubtedly the Bell Mansion, which I was just at a few weeks ago, like as already said. And I gotta say right now, I mean, this place, before I even tell you the history on this location, this place really is it's not a disappointment at all. It was really a location that not only just had even though it's short-lived, a short story, fascinating history regarding what it is, but also the paranormal activity in this place is we got quite the amount of responses at this place, so it's definitely no joke at all whatsoever. But it's an awesome location. But let's go back, obviously, to how it all first began. And like I said, for those that are coming in, this is not really going to be that long, surprisingly, for this slideshow. So to begin with, that in 1893, Wing and Maharan began construction on Robert and Clara's romance-style mansion. So here is Robert and Clara. The same architect as the University of St. Francis base mansion and the History Center, both in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Robert served as a state senator, assistant U.S. Commissioner for Indiana, huge investor in natural gas. The reason Fort Wayne and even Chicago got not natural gas when they did, and was a prominent lawyer. So that's actually a really cool thing about the Bell Mansion, is that although it's located in Fort Wayne, Indiana, it even has some trace going back. I mean, even has some connection to Chicago, believe it or not. I forgot to mention one other thing just before we finish up. I don't know if you guys could hear anything in the background. You guys can hear what sounds like water running. That actually is that's actually our hose running. We're actually to put in the simplest perspective, we actually do have a swimming pool, and the water is currently running right now. So if you guys hear something, that's just the hoses running. It's not going to go. It's probably going to last throughout the entirety of the show, because right now I'm in the basement as a result, and unfortunately, this is going to be running throughout the entire show. So I do apologize if you guys can hear that sound. Anyways, Clara helped form the first classes at the Fort Wayne Art School and was the co-founder of the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. The couple was originally from the Muncie area, but moved up here for business purposes. They were now, from what I was told from this picture, I think this was taken, around the early 1900s. It was really one of the very few photos I was able to find of the mansion, when it was brand new. But at the time, though, for the couple, they were the Bell couple. They were a very prominent couple during their years here in Fort Wayne. Not only did Clara leave her forever footsteps at the art museum, his law firm is still going strong, known as the Barrett McNagny law firm, serving the local area still today, believe it or not. They only had one child, Bessie, but unfortunately, due to illness, died at 11 months old. After Robert's death in 1901, the home was sold to William K. Noble, who ran a lumber company that operated in 3 states. His family of 3 lived there for 22 years and sold the building for $50,000 to the Clahan Funeral Home. Now, this is basically the beginning of it. I mean, obviously, of its history is famous enough, but it is here where things actually really start getting interesting and somewhat a little bit dark, but especially now that you hear that it's going to be now that it's been turned into a funeral home. And that's the one thing they often talk about in the history of this mansion. So when it was a funeral home, one of the most famous people to ever come through this funeral home was a man by the name of Homer Van Meter, who was essentially John Dillinger's right-hand man. His body came through the mansion in 1934, and they had his funeral service in Fort Wayne. They had to do a makeshift funeral after hiding his body due to people trying to steal his body and holding it for ransom. The makeshift funeral happened during the day at Lindenwood Cemetery, but they actually buried his body in the early morning hours of the next day. In 1935, the West Side Addition was added due to high demand. At this time, funerals were no longer held in the resident's home as they were done in the 1800s. And that's the thing, too, is that this, at least for Fort Wayne, this was one of the first of its type, because I'm sure we all pretty much know that prior to the 20th century, many funerals were often usually held at the family's home themselves rather than having it at an actual funeral home. I mean, they did have funeral homes already, even back then, but for the majority of time, they often usually held them at their own homes, because it was like a way, I guess, to symbolize like this is where they lived, and this is where they were going to be held for their funeral after they died. Excuse me. So and what's amazing is that this mansion remained a funeral home for over 92 years, which literally it actually went it literally ran from, if Ricky was telling me correctly, it ran from 1926, I believe, all the way up yet till about 5 years ago to 2018. I asked Ricky at one point about, do we know exactly how many bodies may have gone through this mansion while it was operating as a funeral home? And he told me that they don't know for sure, but it is believed that over 400,000 plus bodies had passed through this building. Until they left the building in 2000, I mean, that was until they left the building in 2013, and the Sturms bought the building in 2020 to preserve its beauty. In fact, actually, that's the one thing. That's what's really fascinating, is that when Tom and I went just a few weeks ago, they were actually, I think, still, well, not them. They had some employees there that were actually doing some restoration work. I believe it was on the roof of the building, so they're still restoring it to exactly how you see in these pictures. So it's really I thought that was really cool to actually see some of the restoration in progress still going even when we were there. So yeah, unfortunately, as you can see, that was all I could find as far as the history goes for the mansion. But as far as today there are over 14,000 square feet in this absolutely breathtaking mansion. No details has gone unnoticed. Now, before you proceed, what's really cool about this picture this picture of the Bell Mansion was who this was taken by. I didn't know it at the time, but I found out from Ricky that this was taken actually by I believe it was by Elliot and Nat of ACG Paranormal from Joliet, and that was quite a surprise. And when we were at the Bell Mansion that same day, we actually did receive a surprise visit from them, which is always awesome to see. So it just made our day better. But yeah, this picture right here was taken by them, and that's just an absolutely stunning photo, especially with the snow. So and I found this on Google Image originally. So a photo like this, I thought was really this was one I definitely wanted to add to show its modern look. Now, as far as the ghost stories go, and again, there were very few details, but again, Ricky was able to provide me some help, fortunately. And from what I was told, was that the Bell Mansion is rumored to be haunted by multiple entities. One of them includes apparently a haunted doll that people have had paranormal activity around, which we never got to see the doll when we were investigating. According to Ricky, they said that they did have it. I think he said he had it locked down in a room in somewhere in the basement area. That the Sturms, I think the Sturms said that this doll had like a lot of negative energy. I might be incorrect on it, but apparently it's no longer publicly viewed, so it's locked in some room down in the basement. But of course, in addition to the doll, you have a lot of your typical type of activity: footsteps, disembodied voices, really good quality EVPs coming through recorders, and several meters going off are common. And that's what happened to us when we investigated later that night. Unfortunately, if you guys had seen the lives, we weren't originally going to investigate because we were going to see Mike Ricksecker for his first ever public, event of connecting the universe, contrast to how he usually does it, which is usually through podcasting, like a lot of us do. So going on the investigation was kind of a last minute thing. And as a result, because again, we didn't have plans, I didn't have any of my equipment with. So fortunately, they were able to provide us with some equipment that they had, including a REM pod. And the responses we got were definitely really interesting, especially a particular room up in the mansion, which I'm going to get to real shortly. But to give a little bit more description on exactly who's exactly haunting this mansion, is that apparently Homer Van Meter is believed to be one of the spirits who haunts the embalming room, but roams throughout the building. Maria, who was said to be a servant, is said to inhabit the servants' quarters, and a child that is believed to be named Samantha or Sammy, who had died in a house fire, is said to be attached to one of the baby body boxes in the basement. Whoops. And that's the thing. When you go to the embalming room, see, I didn't remember seeing any of these body boxes in the basement, but then again, I think because the majority of the time we spend most of it upstairs. I never saw these body boxes, although in the embalming room they still had a lot of the embalming tales. You know what? Because we're pretty much at the end of this, I'll exit it out. And whoops, what is this? Okay, I don't know what that was, but very quickly. Hey, what's going on, Scott? Good to see you. Yeah, we spent the majority upstairs in the upper corridors of the mansion, and when you go up to the embalming room, they have a lot of the embalming tables in the which are all still original. These were the actual. I wish I had a photo of it, but they were the actual tables that were used for during its time as a funeral home. And as far as the servants' room that we were in, where apparently Maria was said to inhabit, she apparently speaks a lot more Spanish, and the responses we got from that place was from that room in particular was absolutely crazy. I'm actually trying to find right now, see if I could try to look for that video right now. I should have downloaded it and should have added it to the slideshow. So bear with me for just a second. I know I have it. I know it's on the Things Network page. And let's see here. Of course, it was 2 weeks ago, so you'll have to excuse me for I got to scroll through to find it, of course. Here it is. All right, here we go. So let me try to. Wasn't really planning on making this a video review, but undoubtedly you kind of have to when you're giving these descriptions. All right. Unlike what we did with OSR, we're only just gonna watch a fragment of the video of the investigation. Eric, I don't think we were allowed to lay on the embalming tables. No one did. We could touch them with our hands, but I don't think we were allowed to. We weren't really allowed to lay on them, unfortunately. All right, let's try. Okay, now this, just so I can remember doing this correctly, because I remember last time you guys can hear the sound. Now, this video, as usual, it's going to be pitch black. Obviously, it's typical of these videos, but this was where I used the REM pod, so you might see some features, just not too much.
So, if it's not going off when I'm running on it, it's going off when I'm back here. Is that right? Oh, yeah.
So is this supposed to be going off like this?
Okay, hang on. Let me go back just
a little bit. I moved it. I tried moving it to one of the chairs. It didn't really go.
Okay, yeah, this was right around. This was right around the time we were in the servants' quarters.
Definitely watch your step. I was just gonna say, wait, what?
Service quarters are moving where they're at. We got a whole bunch of people down there. They're running around in the police. It's really hot.
Yeah, it is. Unless you're standing by the window. Oh man, I didn't even realize how high up we were.
Oh yeah, it's like 3 stories. And if I had a better light, which
All right, so this is when I started hoisting the REM pod.
Wait a minute. That might be because of the phone. Put this on the shit. Is there some type of watch going there since housing off, or
it could very easily be.
yeah, it's no matter where I'm putting it at. Yeah. Okay. I don't think this is gonna work here. See, this is why I wish I had the rest of my equipment with.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit because I thought it was. I guess we were still kind of setting up with what we had.
Actually, try to set it
Tom.
on the
Hi, everyone. Wait, set. Oh, put on.
set it on where he's at with your.
Oh. Ricky. Oh my God. You guys. I got it. So, Ricky, I mean, obviously, you know this place better. Is this supposed to go off in an area like that?
No, it's not because
You got it by default.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good distance away from.
put it over here.
Well, I tried putting it over.
Put it right here.
Where?
Let's fast forward. Yeah,
I
here
got
we go.
the
This is
camera.
what I was looking for.
So there's what? Is it?
Hey Maria, make them all go off.
Here, let me get the camera. Tell me if it's pointing to the light since you're watching it.
Yeah, that REM pod, that was going nuts. Even just placing it on, it just lit up like crazy.
Now I see it.
To show the people, I've got my cell phone on and it's not on airplane mode.
And I'm pretty far off.
First, if I put it right up on it.
Yeah, that's because of you, but
I will send a text message. Hang on. Text message just sent. So, if it's not going off when I'm running on it, how's it going off when I'm back here?
Maria, are you here, Maria? Oh, look at that. Oh, wow, look at that. Hi, Maria.
This was going on for several minutes.
Maria,
I was really surprised to see the type of responses
Can
from the
you
REM
light up
pod.
the orange light for me? My name is Tom. You may want to put the volume up. I mean, you can still have the video, but you may want to put the volume. Oh, Tom, it's going up. The orange. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria.
One more time, can you light them all up for us just to confirm we're talking to Maria? Grab that antenna. Light up all the lights.
Whoa. There you go. There we go. Yeah, now we're talking. Hey, Maria. It's not all of them, but it's the majority.
It takes a minute. There we go.
There we go. Now it is. It's grabbing it. Can you touch my hand, Maria?
Do I need to come sit down next to you?
It's funny they claim that.
Now, where this was
Even though it's
placed,
not
this was
original,
actually
they
on
claim
the
that.
bed.
It's
The
theirs.
servants' quarter. You know
Yeah,
what?
I'm
Hang on.
offering you my hand.
Just pause this for a second. Now, where the REM pod is, it's actually on a bed right now, which it's not original to the mansion, but apparently Maria, that is said to, that inhabits this room, she's claimed this bed as her own. And there's also a nearby, much larger like servants' quarter that Ricky had told me that no matter how many times he's been in this, he's been in that room. In fact, on a few occasions, he's even slept in that room. He said he could never sleep because obviously something would happen, whether it's Maria or one of the other spirits, it would keep him up all night. But this room in particular was probably the most active. The embalming room was just as active too, but never this many responses as we got from the REM pod.
And if you want to touch my hand.
That'd be weird. Your finger gets wet. It's like, whoa.
Excuse me.
Look at it. Yeah, look at it go.
Yeah, we were getting really excited seeing this.
Oh, you got a necrophonic. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So I have it too, but since I'm filming live, someone else is going to have to do it.
I've got the new app they came out with too.
Is it like an updated version or?
No, it's what is it? It's called. What is it? Hang on. Necrometer.
Necrometer? Okay, I never heard of that
It's
one.
the same price as the Necrophonic.
I was going to say it's the same price. Still got 8 people watching. Obviously, everyone's enjoying this.
You probably see the other notebook.
Yeah, I see you.
Maria, are you here? Can you talk for us?
See from your side, because sometimes it's easier to see from someone else's side.
I see Brad. I see Linda. I see Liz.
Hola.
Hola.
What?
¿Cómo estás?
She seems pretty thrilled that we're saying like some Spanish words.
Can you make this device unfold and speak Spanish?
Oh, she does. I only know a few words, unfortunately. I've been trying to learn it.
Yeah, like I said, she usually speaks mostly in Spanish and wasn't really able to ask too many questions in Spanish.
Me llamo Cheyenne.
We had somebody speaking fluent Spanish in here, and she went nuts. Like, I told her, hey, tell her to write them all up.
Now let me pause this for a second. Now Scott Smith, who was also with us, who's also another member of Things, he and his daughter were also along with me and Tom, and of course Ricky's in the background too. And Scott's daughter was sitting on the bed when this was all going on, and I know for a fact, I know you can't see it, but I know for a fact she was not the one who was causing it to go off. In fact, you'll hear real soon of her asking about if Maria wanted her to get off the bed. You just got to see it for yourself. So, but like I said, this was going on for several minutes. I've never seen this happen before with the REM pod.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias. Yeah.
Gracias.
No comprete.
Oh, here's a good idea. Maybe ask, having her turn on all the lights like one at a time, but say it in Spanish, obviously. Like, uno, dos, tres, cuatro. That'd be kind of.
She can speak English.
You got the ghost?
It's easier for her
Yeah, I
to
do.
understand.
Hang on one second.
We think she's from Portugal. We've got married.
There you go.
Is that right? Are you from Portugal? Light them all up if yes.
Can you see better now?
A little bit, not as much. That's good enough. You don't want to go too close to it. It's not Portugal.
Do you want me to come sit down? See if she makes it just like Want me to sit down too?
Just need to check the battery power on this.
No touchy.
You heard that, right?
That came from the wall.
Yeah, you heard like a knocking. It was like a. It was like.
Let's go back for a second. Yeah, I heard this loud. At one point I heard this knock that came onto the wall. I'm not sure if it's gonna. You guys are gonna be able to hear it because again of the REM pod going off, but
Battery power on this.
No touchy.
You heard that, right?
That came from the wall.
try one more time.
No touchy.
Yeah, I think that brief noise you could hear is the knock. It actually, here's the thing, it actually sounded a lot louder in person than what you hear in the video. I heard it pretty clearly, and there was a few others who heard it too.
You heard that, right?
That came from the wall.
Yeah, you heard like a knocking. It was like a. It was like that. Oh my God, you're right. It went dead silence for a second. After the knock heard. Yeah, it sounded like it came from the inside of the wall. No, over there.
It was like, to give a better description, it was
Maria?
It was to my left.
On the elevator?
That's the elevator door, Tom.
It was crazy. All right, I'm gonna get up on
Tom was using a translator app actually, Eric.
No, she doesn't want you to leave.
Hi.
Are you making it?
I don't know what it is you see in me, woman.
Do you like Ricky? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to get off the bed?
Just to make it go quiet.
María, ¿tienes algo que decirnos?
Yeah,
That's
see,
great.
that's when Tom was using the
Great idea,
translator.
Tom.
Okay, so I'm good to stay. Why the mother do you want me to stay on the bed?
She likes it.
María, no se olvide que está parado aquí con Ricky.
Okay, just don't do that, Maria. Oh, she laughed at me through the REM pod when we used to have the creepy doll. That's why it's down in the first floor.
I was gonna say, where's the doll at?
It's
That
down
I
in,
know?
Oh, yeah.
Because Maria thought it was creepy too.
Oh,
Ain't that right, Maria? That doll is creepy.
Yep. Wait. Hang on.
Scarier doesn't-
I'm just gonna go back. So now you guys can get the. Now you can hear Ricky explain whatever happened to the doll that was said to be affected with a lot of activity on its own.
Okay, just don't do that, Maria. Oh, she laughed at me through the REM pod when we used to have the creepy doll. That's why it's down in the first floor.
I was gonna say, where's the doll at?
It's
That I
down in
know?
because Maria thought it was creepy too.
Oh,
Ain't that right, Maria? That doll is creepy.
well, even a spirit here doesn't like it.
They knew the rules, though, didn't they?
Pensó que era espeluznante que mostró ese diario.
How about we got my mom? What that did? I can't speak it.
What is that app you're using that translates?
It's called Translate.
Oh, it's called Translate. I thought it was like an actual app.
It's called Speaking
Ask her if she thinks I'm her husband. To light that up.
Maria, do you think Ricky is married to you and he wants to give you children?
María, ¿crees que Ricky está casado contigo y te quiere dar hijos?
Oh, nope.
Just stop.
Thank you. You know respect. You just like me. You want me to take you shopping?
Ricky wants to take you shopping and buy you lots of expensive things.
No.
No. ¿Quieres que te lleve de compras? Ricky quiere llevarte de compras y
It
comprarte
stopped
muchas
again.
cosas caras.
You just like me, don't you? That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, this time I was turning the camera over to myself. So, actually, no, that was when I'm not used to using StreamYard on the phone, so that's my.
I don't think
going
so,
around
man.
right now, trying to get to everybody
Okay,
else.
if I get up and leave, Maria?
Anton here, I think, is speaking Spanish here. Como se llama? That's how I'm saying. See, again, I only know some
I know to
Spanish.
get up. If you don't want me to get up, light them all up.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah, I
more
was gonna
on your
say,
phone than on the computer.
If you want
So
me
we
to
said
stay,
before there was residents.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
María casi me caigo de culo.
Culo. I was gonna say. Culo.
You can still hear that REM
Don't touch
pod
my
is still
culo.
going off like crazy.
That sounded so wrong.
Until you buy me taco.
I think she's laughing with us right now.
If she will, that's how she likes
Yeah.
it.
Here, hold on. Check this out, guys. Everyone is watching.
Por favor. Grande, mucho grande culo.
María, ¿te gusta comer un bistec grande y jugoso?
Oh my God, Tom.
Yeah, Tom was
Steak,
joking
yeah.
around too, as usual.
Poor Ricky. She obviously seems to be enjoying our company right now.
She's off.
You want me to stay on the bed? Please.
Maria, do you want us to go get the dowel for you and bring it up?
Fuck no.
Oh, she
I'm
won't go
not
for it.
touching it. We got
She
the
said-
motion.
You said it's in the basement?
No, I can't.
Oh, in the cabinet?
Look at that. REM pod just
Yeah,
went
Ricky's
off
over here.
when it comes to the doll.
I'm being funny. Oh boy. Come over, come over.
All right, let's go. We're going to check out next room then.
All right.
Thank you, Maria. We'll probably be back in here later. Gracias. Gracias, Maria.
Yeah, that was a really interesting session with the REM pod. I've never seen anything like that before in person. So that was quite an interesting conversation that apparently we had with her. So there was one other spot that we were at when we went to the embalming room. I don't know if I was filming. I don't recall if I was filming live or not. I might have, but I don't remember exactly when. The embalming room, we had some, I don't know what it was, but some relatively negative energy in the embalming room. Tom and I caught up with Ricky and one of the other volunteers in the mansion. And when we were just sitting down, we were doing like a necrophonic session, and all of a sudden Ricky started getting like this like air pressure, and it's very much like a headache. And he said that's never happened to him before. It got to a point where he couldn't even stay in the room any longer. Not long after that, I started feeling that. Saying whatever was latching onto Ricky was now latching onto me. And I started basically reciting the Lord's Prayer because I didn't know what this was. It was not good. But the weirdest thing was, and this was, I've never seen it this much like this in one location, but whatever was there was speaking through the necrophonic and apparently was speaking in German this time. I don't know German myself either, unfortunately. So I had no idea whatever this entity was saying it. And after a couple minutes, we decided to eventually head back down to take a break. Although I think at that point, we also decided that we were kind of finishing up for the night before we were going to call it. And the volunteers, I believe, were doing it. I think they ended up going. Actually, no. Ricky and some of the volunteers went back up to the embalming room, and I think they were doing a sage cleansing because it was. I'm not sure what it was, but they had to do a cleansing to get rid of and remove whatever this entity was. So it was definitely something not good. So was it one of these other entities that we know about? I have no clue, but it was not good. Good part was they were able to get rid of it. So, but it's definitely an awesome location. Oh, sorry. I had to send the link to the show to somebody who loves watching. Unfortunately, looks like she won't be joining for tonight. So, but all in all, Bell Mansion is a fantastic place. I'm going to be heading back there in August, along with Tom once again for a very special event that I think we already paid for. I don't know if I can really say it myself just yet. It may have to eventually wait for a couple more weeks because we're not heading back until August. So, I just really want to say it, but I just can't as of right now. So, I'll save it for a couple more. I'll save it a couple more weeks before I can make the full. I mean, we already are confirmed of going back. I just can't say exactly the details just yet. So eventually I will. All right. Well, since that video was actually able to provide me a little extra time, I think we do have just about enough time because, like I said, I was only gonna run for a full hour this time. I do have time for. I do have at least one other slideshow. This is the other one. Now let me get this set. So hang on one second here, guys. As usual, got to go through this fun routine as always. And now the other location I'll be providing is also, like I said, located in Fort Wayne. Now Tom and I, as well as even Ricky as well, we've been to this location too. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get inside, at least not yet. They do allow investigations in this location, but unfortunately for the investigation that they had about 2 years ago, we were unable to attend or pay for it. But we have visited the outside of it at least. And that location, again, also within the city of Fort Wayne, is what's known as the Fort Wayne Masonic Temple. And I'm telling you, when you see this place, this location in person, which I think is just a block or two from the Bell Mansion, I'm not even joking. I mean, this place, it is huge. It's massive. So, but again, surprisingly, relatively few historical details, but a little bit more, however, than that of the Bell Mansion. So, like I said, this should be able to fill us up for the last remaining 10-15 minutes or so. But what I was able to find on this place was that at 10 stories tall, Freemasons Hall is one of Fort Wayne, Indiana's most iconic landmarks. The first Masonic lodge in Indiana was established in the city of Vincennes, if I'm saying that correctly. I might be saying that wrong, as usual, in 1809. Soon, other lodges were built throughout the state. By the start of the Civil War, there were 270 of them. By 1870, there were 3 lodges in Fort Wayne alone. Oh, I guess I forgot to add the picture transition for this. Now, as far as this one goes, and what's interesting is that this building was actually even larger and wider than what it is now. Built in 1926 at a cost of over $1 million, this building was built as a monument to the ambitions of the fraternity. Local architect Charles A. Weatherhog designed the stately building in the classical revival style. As such, the building features numerous elements of this style, most notably the 5-story tall iconic columns on the front facade, which you can clearly see right here on this old photo of the building, which was very typical for not only for a lot of buildings that were built in the classical revival, but especially for a lot of Masonic temples that were built especially at that time. This beautiful building was immediately one of the largest structures on the Fort Wayne skyline. At the time of its construction, over 10,000 members came and went from various meetings, dinners, dances, and fraternal functions. During its grand opening in June 1926, a grand ball was hosted by the Associated Masonic trustees, and all of Fort Wayne was invited, which was relatively unusual for an entire town to be invited to, because a lot of Masonic temples and the Freemasons that are involved, they're relatively as we all know, they're relatively secretive meetings and events that they often have, and are often usually restricted to just males, men, boys, because as we all know, when it comes to the Freemasons, women and girls were not allowed to be part of the Freemasons, although there were a few occasions where sometimes they would have, like, I guess, exceptional events and meetings where they sometimes were allowed to attend. But for the majority of the time, it's always been, as we all know, a male organization, and also usually a meeting, I guess, meeting location, in other words. And what was surprising was that it said that nearly 3,000 citizens attended that ball alone. Now, for decades, the social room was an exclusive gentleman's club where men could enjoy fellowship with their fraternal brothers. The building boasts 4 separate ballrooms, all identical in size, although decorated differently. They are the Corinthian room, the Ionic room, Egyptian room, and Colonial room. They are still the largest lodge rooms in the state of Indiana. This picture, I think, was taken back in the 50s, if I'm correct. And I forgot to mention the building right next to the Masonic Temple. Unfortunately, this no longer exists, which obviously you saw from the modern photo. And we'll get to that in just a moment of whatever happened to that building in particular. But at the time, the building was truly state of the art for 1926 and established Fort Wayne in Allen County as one of the premier locates in the Midwest for Masonic fraternity. Originally, as you saw, the building shared a causeway with the Scottish Rite building, completed in 1924, which allowed convenient shared event space. By using the adjoined space of the two buildings, as I previously said, approximately 3,000 people could be seated for a dinner or to enjoy a show. Even by today's standards, it was a massive event space. Unfortunately, the Scottish Rite Cathedral was eventually used as a community center and finally removed about 1960. For most of the building's history, it was used exclusively for fraternal events, and many Fort Wayne citizens are still under the mistaken impression that it remains the case. In 1991, the Masonic Temple Freemasons Hall was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which is, of course, typical for a lot of these historic locations. But today, the space formerly occupied by the cathedral is a parking lot owned by Freemasons Hall. And from what I was told, too, is that it's no longer really used by the Freemasons. So that's when it got the opportunity to be open to the public, and not only just for tours and for its historical significance, but also, of course, additionally, paranormal investigations. And there wasn't really a lot of stories I was really able to find regarding this location. I was really only able to find only one particular ghost story involving the temple. And again, I was really surprised that there was really a lot of, maybe there are more stories I just don't know about. This is the only one I was able to find. But what I did manage to find was that in more than 90 years, the Fort Wayne Masonic Temple has not been without stories of ghosts. People claim to have seen and heard the ghost of a young man whose identity is unknown. Witnesses say the ghost causes a great deal of mischief, enjoying slamming doors and switching lights off and on. And that was all I was able to find as far as paranormal stories involving the temple. But like I said, it was a relatively short one. All right, well, I know I know it hasn't been a full hour, but we'll probably end here. I did, however, start a couple minutes later than usual because I was having some technical issues, unfortunately. I don't know who's all been doing this messaging, but I'm gonna have to mute that for now. So we're probably going to end it here because, again, there was just not really too much to really present other than the 2 slideshows for today. So, but at least to give a few extra minutes as usual. As far as next week goes, for next week, we're probably going to go back to and I was mentioning this briefly earlier at the start of the show. For next week, we're going to kind of go back to because if you guys weren't here earlier, I was saying after I finished up the presentation with Ohio State Reformatory last week, I came to the discovery that there were several other haunted and historical locations in Mansfield. In fact, I think it's almost just as haunted as Athens is. And as usual, surprisingly, it doesn't seem like a lot of the locations in the other locations in Mansfield really gets a lot of attention as much as the reformatory does. In fact, the other locations that I just recently had found actually have somewhat of a connection to the reformatory, believe it or not. And of course, additionally to the movie Shawshank Redemption. And I thought it was probably important to present these locations to get the attention that they definitely deserve. I've already created several of these presentations for these locations already, but there's still several more that I'm going to be working on. I guess maybe it's just because of its historical significance, but what's kind of ironic is that the majority of historic locations, both haunted and non-haunted, if you want to put it that way, in Mansfield, a lot of them are historic churches, which I thought was unusual because it's not like Ohio was part of the Bible, I don't even think Ohio at all was ever part of the Bible Belts, but there are a lot of historic churches throughout the town that I thought was definitely necessary to eventually cover. And it was, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them don't really have a lot of hauntings to them, but I thought their history was quite fascinating. So I thought, again, like I've always done before, I not only just present haunted locations, I also present those without hauntings as well. So we're probably going to be looking into doing a lot of locations throughout Mansfield for the next couple episodes. Although I do have a couple requests that I'm going to be working on real soon, presentations real soon. So that's what's going to be happening for the next couple of weeks. We are going to eventually go back, however, too, because believe it or not, there still are a lot of other locations to also present from throughout the town of Athens. I mean, it's just the work for it is almost never done, but I think we are getting close to an end of a lot of the locations I was able to find in southwestern Ohio and Mansfield. So it's still so yes, we are going to be focusing on these 2 towns in particular still for the next couple weeks, but as a constant reminder, it's multiple different locations that we're going to be focusing on. So as always, like I said, I always like to thank everybody who was able to play along and hang out with me and check out some of these really interesting locations. So unfortunately, I did try contacting the owners of the Bell Mansion if they wanted to tune in. I never got a response, unfortunately. I even tried contacting Ricky for it, but I think they're just really busy for today. Excuse me. So, but either way, we still had a good run. I'm sure they'll probably watch the rerun as usual. So, but in the end, as always, I know we didn't get quite a huge audience as I was hoping to today, but you know, I still see we got quite a couple of viewers watching right now. So as always, you know, I do appreciate it, of course. You know, like I always say at the end of each episode, I not only just do this for myself, I also do this for everybody else. So, but yeah, like I said, for next week, we'll be focusing on some other locations that I recently had discovered through Mansfield, Ohio, and we'll pretty much see where it goes from there. So you guys all have a great day. I'll be back on tomorrow afternoon with Lois and Grizzly. We're going to be talking about, I think we're going to be doing like an Unsolved Mysteries episode. So that should be interesting. And then tomorrow night for Supernatural Talk, it's just going to be open mic. open mic night. And then for Friday, for the Frighteners, I don't think Lois had anything. Well, actually, I don't think we had anything yet for that show. So we'll up. And now, okay, Ricky. Now he just saw my message. So unfortunately, he's at work right now. I forgot he's at work. Yep. And he just literally said, as I was predicting, he said he's going to watch the replay. So there we go. So, but yeah, like I said, that's what we're going to be focusing on next week for different haunted historical locations throughout Mansfield, Ohio. So thank you guys all so much. Again, as like I always say, I really appreciate it. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night for to the Gravenback and Supernatural talk. And of course, as usual, if you want to wait till next week's episode of Nick Files, I will see some of you guys next week. So see you guys tomorrow. See you next week. And you guys all have a good rest of your day.